Frozen to the core man here. Oh, I mean, deconverted man here. It's cold. Why is it so cold? Anyways, this guy apparently talked to Matt Dillahunty, and he thinks that he has a reason why God isn't apparent to all humans. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to respond to his video, and we're going to go over that together. And you will, if you watch this, hopefully leave a comment in the comment section. And if not, you'll just show up in chat and say stuff in chat, I guess. Here we go. Where is it? There we go. All right. Is it reasonable to expect falsifiable, testable evidence for God? Yes, I think it is reasonable to expect that for anything at all, not just God. But yes, would be the answer.
I went on Matt Dillahunty's call-in show, at least I think it's his or something. I went on the line with Matt Dillahunty, and Eve was framed. So this is kind of by way of a reply to the conversation that happened there, or a further clarification, maybe. I don't know. Let's just go with reply. In any case, it was interesting. It's an experience. I don't know if I'm going to do it again. I don't really like the format that much. The 1v2 thing makes it kind of hard to follow both lines of argumentation. Also, I don't like putting myself in a scenario where it feels like one side has kind of almost unilateral control over what's going on just by having like an off switch or something like that.
That's the entire internet. Everywhere you go, there's going to be a moderator that has control over the conversation at hand. So, except even on your own channel, you can decide to turn off the switch and not speak to anybody. It's a weird complaint to have. Oh, well.
In any case, the initial question I think I asked Matt was what type of evidence he would accept for the existence of God. And I think he seemed a little bit squirrely of that. He said something to the effect that he doesn't know. But he did give me something later on that kind of makes me think he knows-ish what type of evidence. He used the words falsifiable, testable claim, right? I think something to that effect. Right? That's the type of claim he wants. He wants a claim that's falsifiable and testable, i.e.
Okay, so it's kind of a meta analysis that I need to give here for a moment, in that in dealing with apologists for as long as I have, I've noticed certain tricks, if you will. And Matt's been doing it for a long time too, and I'm sure he's seen the same tricks. The problem when an atheist is asked, well, what would convince you of God? Whatever answer they give is always going to be twisted by the apologist later to fit their narrative. Almost always. If indeed that apologist is setting up the atheist by asking that question in the first place. Well, what would convince you of God? My answer is simple. The same thing that convinces me of everything else. I have the same standard for God as I do for anything and everything else in reality. This is evidence that this thing exists. There you go. That's what I need for God. The same things that I have for this, that's what I need for God. The same thing that I have for this, that's what I need for God. And there are multiple things that I have for this that I could list off. But of course, then the theist could say, well, but God isn't that way. And so, well, what was the point of asking me? Or, well, you're silly to ask that, or, well, whatever. And I've seen this happen where the atheist will attempt to answer it honestly, and then it will be twisted by the apologist. So atheists have gotten wary of answering this question because of that. It's not your fault. Maybe you had good intentions in the question, but we've seen it enough to where we're like, Why is he asking that question? Like, don't you know why I don't believe in God? Like, I've said why I don't believe in God plenty of times. Haven't you looked at that? I don't know. Maybe you didn't. So it should be evident. Now, Christopher Hitchens, once upon a time, I believe, said $1 million in his bank account as evidence for him believing in God. And he said, well, I think that the church could do that, and it was really funny, because, like, yeah, sure, why not? $1 million shows up in my account. I believe in God. I could say that. That would, yeah. Now you could say, well, that won't really convince you. How do you know? See, and that's the problem is you can always say, well, it wouldn't really convince you, and you can pretend to read my mind and know what would or wouldn't convince me, or you can shift the goalpost around and say, well, but God isn't that thing. You're asking for something that God isn't, and it's silly, and you're doing, and it's like, don't ask me the question then if you already have decided what your answer is going to be to my answer, or what is the point? If you're not trying to figure out what I think, feel, and believe, or why, don't ask the question. Don't make it into a trap. And so if you are legitimate in trying to figure out why don't you believe in God? Well, there's no evidence for God. Okay, I think there is. Here's the evidence I have. And they're like, yeah, well, that's not evidence. There you go. And you can think it's evidence all you want, but I don't. And that's the problem. Anyways, so back to the.
He basically claim he wants a miracle in a bottle as justification for something spiritual existing. For the existence of God, I imagine he would want the Lord thy God to come down from on high so that he could stay with him for a couple of months and Matt could do the tests he wants. The thing is, I don't think this is the type of evidence that God is going to give Matt. I would give up on that, at least if you're.
Now, how do you know? Why wouldn't God give Matt? In fact, forget about just Matt. Why wouldn't God give that to everyone? Why is it that God is not so evident that no human asks the question if there's a God or not? And in fact, why isn't God so evident that we all can interact daily with God in a way that is similar to how we interact with other humans? There's no reason that God can't behave in that way according to, well, a wide variety of definitions of God. I don't know which God you're speaking of. So now we get into the problem of, well, what do you mean by God? What do you think God is? What do you think God can and can't do? Because depending on that will change whether or not there's going to be any apparent evidence of this thing. If you're talking about a being that has an intellect and that has an ability to communicate, cool. I don't see that being. I don't have any evidence of that being. And if you're saying, well, this being has the power to make itself known to you, and it's not doing that, why should I believe that it's a being in the first place? And that's the problem you seem to be overlooking. You're not listening, it seems like, to the answer. I want the same thing, me personally, Deconverted Man, wants the same thing that I have for everything else around me for God. And I'm told things like, look at the trees. And I'm like, when I look at the trees, I see trees. I don't see God. Unless God is a tree. One person said, look around you. And so I did. I was like, what am I looking for? What am I looking at? My house? Oh, notice your house is designed. I'm like, oh, yeah. And well, there you go. I was like, what do you mean there you go? It's a non-anything. What am I looking for? What methodology do I need to utilize? Well, if you look hard enough, you'll find it. How hard is hard enough? Look in what place? How, and so it's this endless quest to find this thing that may or may not even be out there to find. And I just go, you know what? If it cares about me, if it wants to know who I am, then it can just talk to me. And if it doesn't, then why should I have anything to do with it? There are humans that exist that I don't know anything about. So I don't care. I care that they exist, but I don't care about them. I don't have a relationship with them. I've never talked to them. I don't even know about them. I know nothing about them. But let's say one of those individuals stumbled onto my YouTube channel. I've got this guy in chat, Al Trucker, for example, showed up in chat. I don't know that I've seen that name, that screen name or not before. Welcome to the channel, by the way. But if that individual wanted to interact with me more than just chat or whatever, he could email me. My email's on my little drop-down about thing on my YouTube. We could interact with each other. You can say, hey, Deacon for the Man, how's it going? And I'm whatever. And, oh, hey, how's it going? And, heck, we could be on StreamYard and talk to each other out loud with, and we could get to know each other, right? But your God, this God thing, apparently I can't do that with. So if it's out there and it supposedly knows about me, it knows where I am, it knows how to message me, it knows how to email me, it knows how to call me, and better than that, it could just speak to me, but it doesn't do that, but yet it cares about me. Well, it's sure not acting like it cares about me, because if Al Trucker, cared about me or wanted to know, maybe, cared about, it's kind of a weird phrase, but, wanted to know more about me, they could attempt to do that. Now, maybe they'll fail in that endeavor, maybe we won't like each other. I don't know, who knows? You take a risk in those sort of interpersonal relationships, but we could at least find out. We have that possibility. I know that he exists. I have no reason to doubt that he exists. Now, I don't know his real name. He doesn't know my real name, and we might not exchange real names, and that's fine. We can still get to know each other at some level. But God hasn't emailed me or messaged me or called me or said hi at all. Not even a little. Why is God so utterly silent? That's the problem. Well, it's one of many problems.
If you're watching this, Matt, I would give up on that idea. So I'm gonna go with an anecdote here. Have you been driving down the road and you see a cop up ahead, and all of the law-abiding citizens, you see their brake lights go on? Now tell me, in that scenario, is the adherence to the law that these citizens display meaningful? Is it meaningful obedience under the guise of this policeman? Because you could argue they're doing the right thing. Are they doing it for the right reasons?
Who cares? What does it matter? The right thing. Well, okay, so I guess we could say, hey, look, let's extend this analogy further. Let's say that everybody, going the speed limit at all times, because everybody is just recognizing that that's the right thing to do. Then your analogy's dead, right? Because people have to be breaking the speed limit for them to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to slow down. But what if everybody realized collectively we need to go the speed limit because that's safe for everybody involved? And collectively we decide, you know what? There's no reason to have police look at us because we're all doing this on our own. There's no need for any laws to tell us to go the speed limit because we've all decided to go the speed limit. We don't need a rule in place to enforce us to do this, because having that law means that we're doing it for the wrong reason. Well, it's against the law to break the speed limit. But, okay, so we get rid of that idea. And we say, okay, we don't need it to be a law because we don't want a law, because then if I follow that law and I'm doing it because I don't want to get a ticket, I don't want to break the law, I don't want to get in trouble, I don't want to pay a fine or go to jail, that's the wrong reason. Okay, but now what's my reason? Well, because everyone else is doing it. Well, that's a bad reason too. Well, I'm doing it to make sure nobody gets hurt. Well, that's a bad reason. What wouldn't be a bad reason? You could move that goalpost back as much as you want. You could change it as much as you want. You can say, well, it's a bad reason to do the what I consider good unless you're just doing it for no other reason than it's good. Well, what makes it good? I don't know. So there's a better scenario. Putting away the shopping cart, that's a better scenario. Okay, do you put away your shopping cart after you're done with it after shopping at the grocery store, for example? Okay. Now, sometimes and often I wouldn't do it. I'd kick it, zoom, watch it go zooming off, or leave it there and just zoom off. And nowadays, I put it in the little area that it's supposed to go in. And if there is no area, I'll go all the way back up to the front of the store and I'll put it in there. Nobody's telling me to do that. There's no reason to do it, no benefit. But I want to do it. I think it's a good thing to do. It's a small, good thing that I can do. But if I do that because I think, oh, Santa Claus is going to give me a reward for being good, then I'm behaving good because I believe that there's going to be a reward for behaving that way. And that would be the wrong reason. So who decides what the right and wrong reason is to do or not to do any given action? Your analogy, I get it. I get what you're trying to say is like, if we all knew God existed, then we would behave because we knew God existed. We'll get more into that in a bit here.
Probably not, or they would have been doing it all along. In my mind, the unambiguous existence of an all-powerful deity has a marked effect upon us. In a similar effect, I think, in my mind, at least to a lot of people. So you take someone like Matt, who I believe he would call himself an anti-theist. He thinks religion is bad. He says he's seeking truth. I guess that's, I don't know what that is. But I don't think he likes God that much. I don't think he likes religion that much. Were he to get what he wanted, do you think he would like God? I don't think he would.
Well, that's kind of that's pretty sad state of affairs if you think that God is unlikable. Wouldn't God be the maximally likable thing? Wouldn't everybody love God immediately? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they like God? But who cares? Again, why does that matter? Whether I like God or not, at least I know God exists at that point. Then I can get to know God. And if I like him, cool, let's hang out. And if I don't, okay, well then screw you, God. Whatever. Blast me into non-existence, whatever you're going to do. I don't know, but I don't like you. What can I say? You're a real jerk. What if, and I'll put this out there, see if Magnifico Giganticus will respond to my short video response to him. What if, and this is a weird one, but bear with me, what if it turns out God is Adolf Hitler? Now, if you're not sure who that guy is, he wasn't a very good guy. Some people like Adolf Hitler, but I would dare say most of us don't like him. So Adolf appears, does miracles, whatever, flies around, and does whatever he needs to do to prove to you that he's God. And you're like, but I thought you were a human. He's like, oh yeah, I came to the planet Earth to mess around for a while. I got bored of that and sent myself back into the sky by shooting myself. I'm God. I can do whatever I want. Doesn't have to make sense to you, pitiful mortal. Now, do you want to be my friend or not? No, I don't want to be your friend. Well, then, blah, 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 whatever, right? But at least you would know at that point, hey, there is a God and he sucks and you don't want anything to do with it. And that would suck. I mean, what are you going to do about it? You know, hey, everyone, let's get together. Let's figure out how to kill God, because it turns out God's really evil and nasty. We're going to fail, but we got to stop this guy. I don't know. It's completely hypothetical, but it sounds so silly when you say, well, he wouldn't like God. How do you know? What kind of God wouldn't be likable? What the bleep?
I don't think he would have a meaningful relationship with God. You can see this type of dynamic play out, in the Old Testament. There were like a handful of people who had a meaningful relationship with God back then. Overwhelmingly, you would see generations that would follow God. The next generation falls away, starts worshiping idols. God smites them in no uncertain terms. They come back to God, serve God for that generation, and then the next generation falls away again.
Well, you're using your stories that we don't believe in to talk about God, but okay, fine. You know, doesn't sound like God really knows how to interact with humans then. I mean, how is it that God didn't communicate effectively to those humans that he was having relationships with? Or how is it that God was viewed so poorly that people decide to walk away from God and worship idols instead? That doesn't speak very well for God's personality. It does seem to suggest that God kind of sucks to some degree. But also, why does God care if I worship an idol? So what? Worship an idol. Who cares? Maybe if God wasn't so uptight about being worshipped, more people would like God. I don't know. Seems like a jerk. But that's only basing God on the story, which maybe I understand the story wrong. Maybe you understand the story wrong. But if you're telling me God at one point appeared to humans in a way that they could tell it was God, and then some people said, screw this, let's go worship idols, and God's like, zap, 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 and they're like, okay, we don't want to get zapped anymore. Well, they went back to God for a very bad reason, right? They didn't go back to God because they liked God. They went back to God because they didn't want to be zapped anymore. That's not good, is it?
Right? Point being, were God to come down, were God to give Matt the definitive proof that he, I assume, demands as justification for the existence of a God. I guess he didn't demand it. It seems like that's the type of evidence he wants, though. Like, were God to give him the type of evidence he wants, definitive, testable, falsifiable proof for his existence, belief and obedience would be dragged from Matt at the point of a cosmic stick looming over his head.
Okay, now we're going to get good, because I'm going to pull up my favorite program of all time, MS Paint. So here we go. So now, look, this is my version of God, okay? I draw him don't run off with, oh, you got God wrong or whatever. Let's just, okay. So here's God, and he's got this big old screw you stick. You know, he's going to whack me with that stick. And this guy, I guess that could be Matt Dillahunty. I'd rather it be me, but whatever, whoever it is. Oh my God, God is real, and he's got a big old screw you stick that he's going to whack me with unless I obey him. That's bad. So I guess I better obey him because I don't want to be whacked by a stick. It's called, by the way, ad ballum. This is an appeal to force. Actually, ad ballum means appeal to the cudgel or the stick. Literally, appeal to the stick. Here's God with the stick. That's a logical fallacy. See, he's not compelling me to do whatever the thing is based on good logic. He's compelling me by force or threat of force. If you don't do what I want, I'm going to whack you with this big old screw you stick. And screw you stick is going to screw you over real good. Whack, dead. I mean, look at the size of that stick. It's going to crush that guy and maim him. It's going to cause serious injuries, perhaps even death. So the reason that God doesn't show up is that we all would feel compelled to do whatever God wanted us to do because we're scared of what God might do to us now that we know for sure that God is really real. Okay, so what? Why would that matter? Why does that matter? Why does it matter that we're going to behave that way once we see God, apparently? Now, many of us go, yeah, whatever, okay, and do whatever we want anyways. In fact, since you brought up the biblical stories, it seems to me that those people knew God existed, but went to worship idols anyways. They weren't afraid of the stick, but they got whacked with the stick so many times that they decided to go back because that was better than getting whacked with the stick. So it doesn't seem to me that much will change other than that we'll all know that God has a giant stick. But what kind of thing, what kind of entity would scare people with a giant stick? So instead, what we have is God is hidden. And instead, what we have is a bunch of nitwits running around with various books saying, hey, my book is the real book. My book tells you about God. No, my book tells about God. My book says what God is or isn't. My book says what God is or isn't. No, mine. My book, my book, my book, my book, my book, my book. And poor skeptic in the middle here is going like, I don't know. Oh, and then in this guy's book, see, it says this thing about God in this guy's book, right? This is what God is like in his book, right? And God's like this thing. Oh, isn't that nice? This guy's God is actually, his God is going to kill you, but also you're not really dead and you're on fire all the time, forever and ever, unless you believe in his God. So this guy's God doesn't care. If you believe in it, cool. If you don't believe in it, it's also cool. Doesn't matter. It's not going to punish you one way or the other. That's this guy's God. But this guy's God, if you don't believe in this guy's God, when you die, you won't be dead. You'll instead be on fire forever and ever because you dared to not believe in this guy's God. And this guy's God is mentioned in this guy's book, right? And this guy's God is mentioned in this guy's book, but his God doesn't threaten me with that giant stick of punishment that we already established would be a logical fallacy to do that. If God is threatening us with eternal hellfire, that is one giant stick that makes God use a logical fallacy to appeal to a stick, the appeal to cudgel, the ad ballum. if you don't do this thing that I want you to do, I'm going to smack you around with this stick forever and ever and ever. That other guy's book, his God doesn't care if I believe in it or not. Now, I don't know which of those two gods is true, but I do know which of those gods is illogical. The God that is illogical is the one that is threatening to do harm to me for not believing it. That's a made-up God. That's not a real God. Or if it is a real God, then it's not a God of logic. If it's illogical, then it's like a human. Now, I may or may not be able to trust any given human, and I risk personal woe on any relationship that I involve myself in. But I don't suffer eternal torture by the person because I wasn't their friend. So your God, if it has a divine stick that it would punish us with, is not a logical being. And such a non-logical being is one we can't know for sure if we could trust it or not, just like with other humans. And we'd have to be able to know if we can trust them or not. But if your friend says to you, be my friend or I'm going to shoot you in the face, that's not a very good friend, is it? Are you being their friend just because you don't want to be shot in the face? That's not a very good reason. Remember that analogy you gave? It's not a logical being, so I couldn't trust it. And if I can't trust it on that issue, why would I trust it that if I do follow it and I do what it wants, that it will give me some reward instead of the punishment? Why should I believe it? It's already threatened me. Why should I believe that it will reward me? And by the way, the reward is also a logical fallacy. It's called an appeal to a bribe. It's bribing me to do what it wants me to do rather than offering me a compelling reason. But it's all in a book. So why should I believe in it at all? God is non-apparent to all humans across the board. Every human has their own version of God, even if they belong to the same religion. That's just the way it is. Even if you think that you have maybe you can get a few people together that all have a similar version of God or even the same, but you start picking at those differences and you'll find them. In fact, what you said here might be rejected by other people that believe in God. They'd say, no, of course, Matt would love God if he showed up for him. And disagree with you on that. Or they say, no. God doesn't have a big stick. The reason why it doesn't show up in this way is because God wants us to have faith in God. That's why God is untestable, unverifiable through any methodology at all, is because God really wants faith. It needs faith. It craves faith. It eats faith. And that's just what God is. And somebody else said, no. God is evident everywhere. Just look at the damn trees. The existence of anything should be held in question if you don't have some way to verify that thing. You have no empirical evidence, no way to verify God with sensory organs. Not only that, but no matter what technology we toss at God, apparently it will not detect God. I don't know how people know that, but that's what I've been told many times. There is no scientific instrument, telescope, microscope, mammogram, whatever the bleep we got, none of that will ever see God. Okay, is there some test that we could do? Because we can test just about everything. No, we can't test God. Okay, well, what do you have then? A book? Well, so what? Everybody's got a book. I've got a book. Of course, my book's really true and for real, but doesn't matter. Everyone has a book. So what? You got some arguments? We've heard them. And we've debunked them many times. And they're the same arguments over and over again. It's just apologists can't admit that the arguments suck. Because that's all they've got. And a few people will admit it's just faith. They just believe in God because they believe and no other reason. Okay. That's not something I can do, though. I can't just believe in something because I need the thing that I have for everything else. Empirical evidence, a repeatable test, or if you're going to give me an argument, at least make sure it's a valid and sound one. Because otherwise, I don't care. And believe me, I've heard, I can't say all the theist arguments, but I've heard plenty. And I've debunked many of them. But maybe you be the first. Maybe you have empirical evidence, repeatable tests. Well, no, you said you didn't, because God won't give that to us. And the reason that you think God won't give that to us is also reasons that you haven't demonstrated to be true. There's just reasons that you believe that God wouldn't reveal itself to us. So, I don't know whether I'd be God's friend or not. I have no idea. Because I've not interacted with God, apparently. Even when I thought I did interact with God, it turns out it wasn't God. It was me that I was interacting with. And if you're currently interacting with God, I got to tell you, it's actually you that you're interacting with. But you're not going to be able to see that as a believer. You can only see that as a skeptic. Because you can always have faith that it isn't just you. That it is a real thing that isn't you. And, okay, I can't negate faith, and I don't know that I would if I could. All I can do is say, use logic and reason. Rather than, here's a made-up reason that explains why God's invisible and intangible. Because if it was tangible and visible, we'd all be scared of its giant stick. And then we wouldn't do good because we want to do good, but because we're scared of God. Why the hell would we need to be scared of God? Why would God care about what we do or don't do? I don't know. Those are all beliefs that you hold that you haven't proved to be true either. It's another belief stacked on the belief, stacked on the belief, stacked on the belief. That you would have to justify at every level. And the justification seems to be not here. I didn't see any empirical evidence for repeatable tests, and you certainly didn't provide me with a valid or sound argument. Well, it'd be valid and sound. But at any rate, you didn't provide that either. So I don't believe in God. I don't even know what God is most of the time. I have to go on what people say God is. Because again, it hasn't said anything to me. And just to cover all my bases, hey God, are you there? Hello? Hello? God, where are you? Are you down here, God? Are you over here? I'm God. I am the lobster God. I am the original deity. I am the true God. Read the Lobsterist and worship me, Lord. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't see God anywhere around here. Did I miss God, maybe? Maybe God showed up and I missed it. I was looking here and looking there. Maybe God showed up while I was not paying attention. And maybe God looked exactly like me, but with lobster claws on its head. I mean, that would be kind of crazy, but God could do that. And I just missed God, and I don't even know that. You know? Oh, well. And I don't watch my own stuff once I upload it, so I'll have missed out if God showed up in my video. But in all seriousness, God hasn't responded. Why? You could easily do so. Hey, God, see this camcorder? Levitate that off my hand. Nope. Okay. Hey, angels, levitate this off my hand. Nothing. Okay, let's go with demons. Hey, demons, go ahead, knock this off my hand. Nothing? Hey, devil, Satan, evil stuff, knock this off my hand. Still nothing. Ghosts, knock this off my hand. People with telekinesis powers, knock this off my hand. Wow. Seems to me like none of those things are able to knock this off my hand or put it into the air. Don't know why that is. I guess they don't feel like it today. Maybe tomorrow. But I doubt it. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for listening. If you have your own complaint about anything I said here, leave it in the comments below. And until next time, be skeptical. And you know what you should do after next time? Stay skeptical. What's that? God showed up in my video. No, he didn't. Are you kidding me? With the lobster original deity showed up in my video? Nah, that didn't happen.